Greetings to fellow listeners of the special segment of the ShortCast by Prithu, the disc course. And today we are going to debate about a topic which is more of a futuristic approach or a new ideology to look at the world around us. And this is going to be an impromptu debate. And today I would like to invite Kalpesh Bhatnagar, who has been my great friend and my great buddy. We have taken part together in many competitions, and yes, we do make a good team. So hi Kalpesh.
Hi Prithu.
So are you ready for today's debate?
Yes, definitely.
So actually the topic for today's debate is egotistic altruism. So you must be wondering what that thing is. And so Kalpesh will further explain what that thing is and how we got to a argument and what opposing views do we have. So yes, Kalpesh.
Yeah, so egotistic altruism is a pretty simplistic idea which is not very clear from the tough word it is. So it just means helping each other and expecting them to help yourself. So like it's when a country helps other country to get more developed in a situation that the helped country is not very developed and the helping country also expects a return from the helped country. I know this is complicated, but the idea is just like you helping your friend and expecting a chocolate from him.
I believe it means that basically helping others is for your own benefit because you expect a return from them.
Yeah.
And yes, so this is the basic idea of egotistic altruism. And the opposing views we have is that I believe that egotistic altruism is not always applicable to the real world. And Kalpesh does have opposing views. So let's start. What's your take on that, Kalpesh?
I definitely disagree with you. In today's world, in this coronavirus outbreak, there won't be any benefit if we do not apply egotistic altruism. If one country develops a vaccine and does not share it, what's the point? Even if the country gets coronavirus free, there's a still chance of recontamination from the neighboring countries. Isn't that true?
Yes, that's true. But I still have opposing views because I would like to come to this point through the various examples. We all are aware that we are living in the positive sum game, and I would like to explain to listeners that the positive sum game is actually the new type or the new world that we are living in, and it basically consists of the profits or the economic development that we are making, which results in an exponential growth. And this is the basic ideology of egotistic altruism. I would like to come to the very basic. Industrial Revolution did provide a shift to the world. It changed things a lot. But when we apply egotistic altruism to that case, we do get some problems. It sought to solve inequalities at that time, but actually it didn't solve all the inequalities. Because after the Industrial Revolution, there was still something that was left behind. The US did show some equalities on the basis of industrial production, but that equality was limited to some parts, which resulted in a major inequality in other parts, and which has been going and it has continued forever. And that's why I feel that the basic concept of egotistic altruism does not always apply to the real world.
I again disagree with you on this point. If we would have applied egotistic altruism in the example which you shared about the Industrial Revolution in the US, so if it's not only about countries, if the states of the United States help each other, they might be reaching like consensus or equal economical status or social status. It seems like heat transfer. If one thing is hotter and one thing is colder, and if they like get in contact with each other, they come to a consensus at an equal point. So if some states like California would have helped other states like Minnesota and stuff, so their financial status would have been stabilized and the people would have getting the same livelihood.
Here I would like to add some stats to substantiate my point. I agree to some parts of your of your points, but I would like to add some stats to substantiate my point. So, after in the Europe, where inequality has trended downwards, this change comes in 1910, almost 100 years after the Industrial Revolution. And in fact, for both the US and the Europe, inequality decreased from 1870 to 1910, and European wealth inequality only declined below US's inequality in the 1960s. So this doesn't explain why was egotistic altruism not applied to the Industrial Revolution case, because almost after 100 years we saw this trend. So don't you think it's not always applicable?
I agree with that, but the point is, it does not become applicable. We need to do work to make it happen. If we want to, if we don't help the country, they won't ask for help. That's kind of a thing which is there with countries or states. We never ask for help. It's like a negative thing. So, in your case, if like Europe, it turned out to the same financial and social status after 100 years, if the relations between US and Europe were good at that time, there might be trade, machinery exchange, and workers going from US to Europe, and both the areas would get industrialized at the same rate. Yeah, there would be time difference, but it would be shorter than 100 years, as you told.
So I believe we have arrived to some conclusion of the first part of the debate, that I also believe that this point is true. And I would like to add a statement here that rather than the individual interest in the aggregate, inequality is decreased by individuals recognizing that their interests are collective rather than simply individual. Because it's actually dependent upon many factors, the political factors, the social factors. And not only economic development is dependent upon economy, it's also dependent upon various other factors. And that's why we see a hike or a low in the economic development or in the inequalities in the Europe after 100 years. So I think that this is a plausible explanation. What do you think, Kalpesh?
Yeah, it was a really good explanation that it should be done by individuals and it can lead to a collaborative change in the whole world. And I think we are at the conscience on egotistic altruism.
Yes, so now let's come to the second part of a debate. I have a second claim on this. So yes, I guess egotistic altruism states that innovations are powered by supply and demand and individual incentives. But I have a second claim here, is that actually innovations are not always powered by supply and demand. For example, a particular situation which is distressing for an individual can also initiate an invention, because sometimes distressing situations we tend to find solutions to that problems, and thus without any supply or without a demand for that particular solution, we still have that tendency to create the solutions. So what's your approach on this?
Okay, so now I would like to clear this point that demand is not only from other individuals. The thing which you told that due to some circumstances there might be inventions, that's kind of an incentive, a personal demand that the person has, because he wants to achieve something, he wants something to make his life better which is not even there. So there is automatically an incentive within the person to work for it and to get the supply and get the demand around people for it, so that his invention is there, he could finance it and it could be distributed, because without any distribution or any finance, it's very difficult to do any big invention.
So yes, I agree to you here, and I would like to expand the definition of the supply and demand, because supply and demand not only depends on personal incentives or the public incentives, it also depends on our will for the public good, because inventions are not always done for supplies and not always done to meet the demands. It is also done for public goods. So a more expanded definition for the same would be better for a greater understanding of this topic. And now I would like to add something here, is that for example, the poverty ratio, the extreme poverty. I would like to talk about it, that if egotistic altruism is in the benefit for us and for the others around us. So how can we see a decline in poverty in the coming years?
I would like to combine both of your points about incentives and demand. So, egotistic altruism can also be seen as a habit and as a good. So, until there's an incentive in people that egotistic altruism should apply, it won't work. Like you're saying in the case of poverty, this egotistic altruism is like a very futuristic idea, and until we do not spread the knowledge of this in many people, there won't be any incentive, or there won't be any demand, or people won't be asking the government or individuals to apply this egotistic altruism. And if we don't do anything, or if we don't try to help others, there won't be much of a decline in the poverty. So, and there's one more point, not only us, the people who are actually facing those poor circumstances need to have the will to actually grow up and get the same social and financial status. If they won't do it, then there's nothing we can help much. So there should be like a two-way demand and incentive to apply egotistic altruism. There should be incentive in the helper, and there should be incentive in the helped person or country.
So basically you are implying that for egotistic altruism to be applicable to the real world, we need to have incentives from both the parties for a win-win situation for both the parties. And for having that, we need to develop that incentive, that will, that this egotistic altruism, this new futuristic idea will be applicable and will be for your good. If this thing spreads to everyone, and if people know about this thing, I believe yes, it can sometimes be a very grateful approach for helping ourselves by helping others. So yes, I agree with this point. Anything more you would like to add, Kalpesh?
Yeah, I would again like to add one more thing, that this egotistic altruism is not a thing which is very necessary. Okay, that's what the people are thinking right now. People think, why should we help somebody else? The point is, people think helping is like a good task and you don't get anything in exchange of it. So this idea of egotistic altruism is like a very good way to tell people that helping can also lead to your benefits, and the education of this point will lead to a drastic change in the world.
Yes, so this idea of egotistic altruism is basically revolves around helping others for your own help. And because if you help others, if you help the others grow, then it would indirectly affect you in some other way and would always be helpful for you throughout your life. So yes, I basically agree to your point here. And yes, I think that if we expand the definition of egotistic altruism in order to reach to the problems of the people and expand its definition to be a win-win situation for both the parties, I believe yes, it will be applicable to the real world, and yes, this futuristic idea will become our present. So Kalpesh, you want to add anything else?
Yeah, I really support your point that egotistic altruism is like a good thing if we expand the definition, or if we expand the thinking and think in a different way. There's a saying which goes like, we need to do something to get something. So we need to change our mindset. We need to lose our mindset of not helping to achieve a better world.
Good thoughts coming in from Kalpesh. And yes, that was the end of our debate anal altercation. And we came to a conclusion that expanding the definition of egotistic altruism is for the benefit of both the parties, for us and for the others, in order for them to grow, indirectly for us to grow. Thank you, Kalpesh, for joining me for this podcast, this special segment. Hope you liked it, and I would like to have your views that will this podcast be successful?
I think the podcast will only be successful if we are able to spread the knowledge or spread the ideas which we are having to farther and many people around the world. So if we can create a change, definitely this podcast will be successful.
Thank you, Kalpesh, for joining, and thank you, listeners, for listening to this special segment of the ShortCast by Prithu. Till then, be safe, be quarantined.